Hello and welcome. Today, we are going to tackle a really fascinating economic puzzle, one that quietly messes with every single one of us, right in our own wallets. It's called the money illusion, and honestly, getting your head around it can totally change how you think about your money. So, let's just dive right in.
So, you know that feeling, right? You get a pay raise, you see that bigger number on your paycheck, and for a second, you're excited. But then you pay the bills, you buy your groceries, and it just feels like the money vanished, like you're running on a treadmill, not actually getting anywhere. Well, guess what? You are not imagining it. There's a name for this.
And that name is the money illusion. It's basically a glitch in our brains, a cognitive bias, where we get totally fixated on the nominal value of our money, the number printed on the bill, instead of its real value, which is what it can actually buy. To put it simply, we see the number and we forget to ask what that number is actually worth.
This right here breaks down the problem perfectly. Okay, let's say last year you were making 10 million tomen. This year, you get a great 20% raise, so now you're at 12 million. Fantastic, right? Well, hold on. What if inflation in that same year was 30%? Yeah, your nominal salary went up, but your real purchasing power, your actual ability to buy stuff, has gone down. If you only look at that 12 million and feel richer, well, that's the money illusion in action.
So where did this powerful idea even come from? And how does it really shape our world? In this first part, we're going to dig into the history and the very real consequences of this tricky illusion. So picture this. It's the 1920s. An American economist named Irving Fisher is the one who officially coins the term. He noticed that pretty much everyone, even big-shot policymakers, were constantly confusing the face value of money with what it could actually get you. And this wasn't just some dusty old theory. It became a huge deal in economics, helping to explain things like why it's so hard to cut wages and how money supply affects jobs. And today, it's a cornerstone of behavioral economics. And the impact is absolutely huge. The money illusion affects how we spend our money. You get that raise, you feel good, you might splurge a little, not realizing inflation is silently eating away at your gains. It totally messes with labor markets, too. I mean, nobody wants to see the number on their paycheck go down, right? But a raise that's less than inflation, that's a pay cut in disguise, and we often don't even see it. And this is a massive headache for central banks who have to guess how we'll react to their policies based on whether we're seeing reality or the illusion. Now, this whole thing isn't the same everywhere. It's kind of like a global phenomenon, but with, local flavors. It plays out really differently depending on a country's economic story. So let's take a quick trip around the world to see what I mean. First stop, the US. Back in the 1970s, America was slammed with really high inflation. At first, everyone was demanding bigger and bigger paychecks, thinking they were getting ahead. But as the price of, everything shot through the roof, people were forced to learn a painful lesson about the difference between nominal pay and real pay. It was a tough education that led to some really aggressive policies to fight inflation. Now, if you think that was bad, let's talk about Germany in the 1920s. We're talking hyperinflation. I mean, people literally needed wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. Imagine that. That kind of national trauma completely shatters any kind of money illusion. It left such a deep scar that to this day, Germany has a deep cultural fear of inflation, and they are laser-focused on keeping prices stable. Then you have Japan, which is a totally different and really fascinating story. For decades, they've had the opposite problem, deflation, meaning prices were actually falling. This created a sort of reverse money illusion. Even if your salary stayed the same, your money could buy more each year. It made people feel like their money was more valuable than it was, which is one reason why government attempts to stimulate the economy often felt flat. And Brazil gives us another incredible example of learning from a crisis. In the 80s and 90s, Brazil went through its own period of hyperinflation where prices would sometimes change twice a day. As you can imagine, people learned incredibly fast to completely ignore the numbers on the bills. The only thing that mattered was real value. That painful experience just burned the need for price stability into the national mindset. So this table really pulls it all together. You see a clear pattern, right? Countries that go through these extreme, shocking inflationary periods like Germany and Brazil, they basically get vaccinated against the money illusion. But then you look at a place like Iran, which has had this long, slow burn of chronic inflation without that one big shock, and the illusion is still surprisingly strong. And that leads to some really flawed decision-making. And that brings us right to the heart of the matter. The situation in Iran has a very specific set of factors that make this money illusion an especially powerful and persistent force in the daily lives of millions. So why is it so sticky here? Well, it's really a perfect storm. You have decades of chronic inflation that have just trained people to focus on today's numbers. Then you have government policies that announce big nominal wage increases or subsidies, which feel good at the moment, even if inflation is just erasing those gains. The media often reports on these big numbers without the crucial context of purchasing power. And finally, when the currency itself is unstable, it's hard to get a real sense of what your money is actually worth.
Okay, let's put some hard numbers on this because this is pretty shocking. Imagine your salary goes from 15 million to 18 million Tommen. That's a 20% raise. You feel pretty good about that. But if the annual inflation rate is 45%, your real ability to buy things has actually dropped by 17%. That's not a raise. That's a huge pay cut hiding in plain sight.
And listen, it's not just about your salary either. This illusion completely distorts how we see our biggest assets, things like our homes and our cars. This quote just nails it. This is maybe the biggest trap of all. You see the price tag on your apartment or your car double or even triple, and you think, wow, I'm rich. But are you? Are you really? If the cost of everything else has also tripled, your real wealth hasn't changed one bit. You're just using a different yardstick to measure the same thing. Okay, so this all sounds a little bit depressing, I know. But here's the good part. Just understanding that this illusion exists is like having a superpower. So in this last part, let's talk about how to actually use this knowledge to make better decisions.
Here's the mental shift you have to make. Your real wealth is not the number. It's what that number can actually get you in the real world. So stop thinking only in Tommen. Start thinking in terms of how many kilos of meat can I buy this month compared to last year? How many times can I fill my gas tank? How many square meters of a house is my salary worth? That is your real purchasing power.
You can turn this into a super simple 4-step habit, a mental checklist. 1, hear the number of your raise. 20%, great. 2, and this is the most important step, find the real inflation rate. 3, do the simple math. Is your raise bigger or smaller than inflation? And 4, whatever that result is, that's your new reality. That's how you see past the illusion. And really, that's the whole game. This simple shift in thinking is an incredibly powerful tool. So I want to leave you with this. The next time you hear a big financial number, a raise, the price of a house, a government subsidy, just pause for a second and ask yourself that one all-important question. Okay, but what is that in real terms?